Every single app you use, whether it's for social media, banking, whatever, it's got this hidden side. It's the part you never actually see, but it's where all the real magic, and let's be honest, all the heavy lifting really happens. So today, we're going to pull back that curtain and take a look at the backend, the powerful engine that's really driving all of our modern software.
Okay, I love this quote. Yeah, it's a little cynical, but you know what? It gets to a really core truth. While we're all interacting with this beautiful, polished front end, the back end, that's the complex system that's doing the actual work. It might not always be pretty, hence the duct-taped monstrosity part, but its power is all about function, not form. It's the essential machinery that's totally hidden from view. So let's break this down. A really great way to think about it is this technology sandwich idea. The front end, that's the top layer. It's what you see, what you touch, it's basically the showroom. But the back end, that's the real substance of the sandwich. And from here on out, we're going to use an even better analogy, the factory floor. Because that's what it is. It's where all the core logic, all the security, and all the data storage actually happens.
All right, so to really get a handle on this, we're going to take a tour of that factory. First, we'll look at the hidden factory itself. Then we'll check out the core machinery. After that, we'll visit the central warehouse, figure out the communication system, and finally, we'll see how these factories scale up to meet huge demand.
Okay, let's get started. First stop on our tour, the factory building itself. This is the foundation, right? The place where all the operations are housed and get their power.
So in the backend world, that factory building, we call that a server. And it's not just, some box in a data center. Think of it as the complete environment where your application's code actually lives and runs. It's what provides the power and the space for all the work to get done. Seriously, without the server, you've just got blueprints, but you don't actually have a factory.
All right, we're inside the factory now. So what about the machinery? In the back end, this machinery isn't made of steel and gears. It's made of code. And more specifically, it's the code that carries out the application's most critical functions. And this right here, this is the secret sauce of any application. We call it business logic. It's basically the proprietary set of instructions for the assembly line, the unique rules that define what your app does. It takes in raw data, applies all these specific rules and processes, and transforms it into the valuable product or service that the user actually came for. Now, to power that assembly line, you need an engine, right? In development, we call these runtimes, and you can think of them as just different brands of heavy machinery. You might use a really powerful Node.js engine, or maybe a super versatile Python engine, or a classic, time-tested Java engine. They all do the same fundamental job, which is executing your business logic, but developers get to choose the one that's best suited for the specific task at hand. Okay, great. So our factory can process things, but where does it get its raw materials from? And where does it store the finished products? Well, for that, we need to head over to the central warehouse. So the database is basically the application's memory. It's this massive, highly organized warehouse where every single piece of data, from user profiles to product details, is stored, managed, and can be retrieved in a snap when the assembly line needs it.
And just like a real warehouse, there are different ways to organize your shelves. For decades, the industry standard has been relational databases, or SQL. You can think of these as perfectly labeled, assigned bins where everything has a very specific place. But more recently, no SQL databases have gotten really popular because they're so flexible. They act more like an open shelving system that can adapt easily to all different types of data. Now imagine trying to find one specific item in a massive warehouse by writing out a super complex manual request every single time. It would be tedious. That's where an ORM comes in. An ORM, or Object Relational Mapper, is like an automated inventory system. It lets developers use simple, familiar code to grab what they need from the database without having to write raw, complicated SQL queries over and over again. It is a huge time saver.
Okay, so we've got the showroom, that's the front end, and we've got the factory, that's the back end. So, how do they talk to each other? How does an order from a customer in the showroom actually get to the factory floor? Well, that happens through the communication system, the API.
And this slide just lays out that whole production cycle perfectly. Let's walk through it. It all kicks off when you, the user, place an order on the front end. Step 2, that order gets sent to the factory through the API. Then, the backend server fires up the assembly line. That's our business logic to process the request. It might need to go retrieve some parts from the database, our warehouse, and once the product is assembled, which is really just processed data, the backend ships it right back to the front end. And boom, the UI updates for you.
This whole cycle happens in milliseconds, millions and millions of times a day.
So, running a small factory is one thing, right? But what happens when your app goes viral and suddenly you have millions of orders flooding in at once? Well, you have to scale the factory floor, and thankfully modern tools make this not just possible, but pretty manageable.
To handle that kind of scale, developers use a few key tools. First up, you've got a web server, like NGIX or Apache. Think of this as the factory's main gate, efficiently managing all the incoming traffic and directing it. Then, they package up all the machinery into something called a Docker container. This is basically a standardized shipping container, and it makes sure the code runs exactly the same way no matter where you deploy it. And finally, instead of building their own physical factories from scratch, most companies now just rent space from cloud providers like AWS, Google Cloud, or Azure. This gives them access to a global network of automated factories that can scale up or down in an instant.
So, when you boil it all down, the crucial point is this. Even though you never see it, the back end is the powerful, complex, and absolutely essential engine that makes every single modern application you use actually work. It really is the factory, working tirelessly behind that beautiful showroom. And this all leads to a really fascinating question for the future. As cloud services and even AI start to automate more and more of this factory floor, what happens to the architects? What does the future role of the back-end developer even look like in an increasingly automated world? It's definitely something to think about.